The stars above were quiet and space was wide and still. A small cargo ship moved slowly near the edge of known space. It was just doing its job, carrying supplies from one planet to another. On board were only a few humans. They were not soldiers or fighters. They were workers, engineers, and travelers trying to reach a new colony. The ship was not armed. It had no protection. It had no reason to be afraid. Space had been peaceful for many years, and most people believed they were safe. But not all was calm. In the dark corners of the galaxy, a powerful group called the Korgex Empire had grown strong. The Korgex were not known for kindness. They had sharp teeth, hard skin, and eyes that glowed like burning fire. They ruled many planets with strict control. Other species feared them, some stayed away. Others were forced to obey. The Korgex believed they were the strongest, the smartest, and the most powerful beings in space. They thought no one could stop them. One day the Korgex spotted the human cargo ship. Their patrol cruiser flew near, scanning its movements. They found nothing strange, but they did not care. They made a choice: take the humans, just because they could. There was no warning. The patrol cruiser sent a beam to freeze the ship. Engines stopped. Lights dimmed. The humans inside were confused and scared. They tried to send messages back to Earth, but the signals were blocked. In minutes, the Korgax soldiers stormed the ship. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hissed. The humans had no chance to run. They had no place to hide. The Korgax grabbed them, 10 in total. They tied their hands and covered their heads. No questions were asked. No answers were given. The cargo ship was left drifting in the dark, empty and broken. The 10 humans were taken away. No one knew where. Not a single message was sent to Earth. The Korgax didn't even bother to tell their own government what they had done. To them, it was just a quiet act, a secret mission, something simple, something small. They thought no one would care. After all, it was only 10 humans, just 10. No trial was held. No charges were read. The Korgax did not follow rules. They did not believe humans were important. They thought humans were weak. They believed Earth was too far to notice, too far to act, too far to care. So the humans were taken into a dark prison on a lonely planet, a place so cold and hidden that even light didn't shine there. The walls were made of stone and steel. There were no windows, no beds, only silence. The humans were kept apart, locked behind doors that would not open. Days passed, weeks passed. No one came for them. Some cried, some stayed quiet. All were scared. Then, without warning, the Korgax made a cruel choice. They ended it. One morning the prison lights blinked red. Heavy steps marched down the halls. One by one the doors opened. But it was not freedom waiting. It was the end. The Korgax soldiers took the humans, lined them up, and in complete silence they were executed. No words, no chance to speak, no mercy. And that was it. No records were made. No videos were shown. The bodies were taken away and never returned. The Korgax cleaned up the prison and wiped every trace. They laughed. To them it was over. Just another quiet action. Another step in their rule of power. They thought it would disappear into darkness. But the stars do not forget. What the Korgax didn't know was that someone saw the cargo ship vanish. A small drone owned by a trader had picked up the last known location. It wasn't much, just a faint signal, but it was enough. That signal was sent back to Earth through hidden channels used by traders and travelers. It was shared quietly, passed from ship to ship, until it reached the right hands. And Earth listened. At first the news was unclear. A cargo ship lost. No distress signal. No wreckage, no answers. Families grew worried. Friends sent messages. Nothing came back. Earth space offices tried to trace the path, but it led to a blank zone, an area controlled by the Korgax. No one could speak to them. The Korgax did not explain. Time passed. More rumors spread. Someone had seen a Korgax cruiser near the lost ship. Someone else said they saw black armor on a moon close by. The pieces did not fit, but the fear was growing. People began to talk. People began to ask. People began to search. Then one more message arrived. It was sent by a smuggler who worked in deep space. The smuggler had heard whispers. They told of a secret prison, a place where no light touched, a place where 10 humans were kept and never left. The smuggler was scared, but they told someone anyway. Earth now knew. Leaders in Earth's highest councils met in quiet rooms. They looked at pictures, records, and reports. It became clear. The 10 humans had not just disappeared. They had been taken by force, taken without reason, and most likely taken forever. A heavy silence filled those rooms. These were not nameless people. These were workers, scientists, travelers, and builders, people with families, people with stories. They were sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. They were missed. They were loved. And now they were gone. The Korgax thought the humans would stay quiet, that Earth would move on, that no one would dare to question them. After all, they were the Korgax Empire, strong and feared. But they were wrong. The galaxy was full of watchers, traders, farmers, explorers, other species who had also been hurt by the Korgax. They started whispering, passing along the truth, that 10 innocent humans were taken, that they were held, that they were never seen again. It was not a war. It was not a battle. It was something cold and hidden, but it lit a fire in the hearts of many. And on Earth, the fire burned the brightest. People lit candles, names were written on walls, stories were shared, not just for the ones lost, but for what had been done. Anger grew, sadness turned into strength. The people of Earth were not ready to forget. The Korgax Empire had made a big mistake. They thought they had taken only 10 people, but they had touched the hearts of billions. They thought Earth would be afraid, that humans would back down, that no one would act. But they had never seen what happens when Earth listens, when Earth cares, when Earth decides that enough is enough. The stars were still quiet, but the silence was starting to shift. Something was moving, quietly, carefully. And it was coming for the Korgax. The 10 humans taken by the Korgax were not famous. They didn't wear uniforms or give big speeches. They didn't carry weapons or lead armies. They were regular people, working, learning, building, and dreaming. But each of them had someone who cared about them. Each had a story, and each left behind a heart that would never be the same. One of them was named Lena. She was a young woman who worked as a ship mechanic. She fixed engines and checked wires. She smiled often and helped others without being asked. Her brother was one of Earth's top scientists. He created machines that could fly between stars. When Lena didn't return, he stopped working. He stayed awake at night, looking at maps and trying to track her ship. He had given his life to science, but now he had only one goal: find his sister. Another person taken was Toma. He was quiet and kind. He grew food on space farms that helped feed people on faraway planets. His wife was a strong leader in Earth's Space Colony Council. When he vanished, she knew something was wrong. He never missed a message. He always said good night. She searched records and made calls, but no one could find him. She wasn't just a leader anymore. She was a woman trying to bring her husband home. There was also Jenla, a young mother. She had left Earth with hopes of building a better life for her child. Her son was still a baby when she boarded that cargo ship. She sent a picture before the journey, smiling and holding a small toy. That was the last anyone saw of her. Her sister, a famous pilot, was the first to ask questions. She checked space lanes, watched patrol routes, and spoke to other pilots. When she heard the ship never reached its destination, she started digging deeper. She would not stop. Marcus was another. He had lived on Mars and worked as a builder. He helped create safe homes for people who moved to new worlds. He was big and strong but gentle. His best friend was an engineer who designed space bridges, giant metal paths between moons and planets. The day Marcus disappeared, his friend knew something was wrong. Marcus always said where he was going. He never hid anything. That silence felt like a heavy stone pressing on his chest. Then there was Sella, a young student. She loved stars and wanted to be the first human to walk on a gas giant's moon. She read books, asked questions, and wrote letters to scientists. Her teacher called her the brightest mind in their group. Her older cousin was part of Earth's space defense team. When Sella didn't come home, he flew to her last known location. He found nothing, just empty space. He felt helpless and angry. Dren was different from the others. He didn't build or lead. He coded. He worked in deep computer networks. He was quiet but brilliant. His older sister was in charge of Earth's digital systems. She controlled the flow of information between colonies. When Dren vanished, she traced his steps through hidden data. She found pieces of information that didn't belong, files that were erased, records that were edited. Someone was hiding something. She began to follow the clues. Hana was next. She was a nurse who had served during space illnesses. She saved many lives. She was on her way to join a medical center on a new planet when she was taken. Her father was a retired general. He had seen wars come and go. He had tried to live a quiet life. But when his daughter was taken, the fire returned to his heart. He put on his old uniform and started asking hard questions. Rico had dreams of becoming a singer. He played music during long flights. Other passengers always smiled when he performed. His twin brother was a communications expert who worked on sound waves and radio signals. When Rico vanished, his brother tried everything, every tool, every method to find his voice again. But the silence remained. It felt louder than any sound he had ever heard. Myra was a pilot trainee. She was on her last trip before becoming a full officer. Her mother was a commander of a major defense fleet. She had taught Myra to fly when she was just a child. When Myra didn't return, her mother didn't cry. She got ready. She started checking every report and every patrol log near Korgak's space. She wasn't just a mother anymore, she was a storm. The last person taken was Eden, a boy only 15 years old. He had won a contest for young thinkers and was visiting colonies to learn. He was traveling with a guardian, but both were taken. Eden's older brother was a security leader in Earth's outer ring of space stations. He was proud of his younger brother and always kept in touch. When Eden disappeared, he used all his tools to scan the last area he had traveled through. He found a strange signal, a weak one, but it gave him hope. Each of the 10 humans had someone important in their life. And those people were not just important in their homes, they were powerful in their fields. Some had the minds to move planets. Others had the skills to lead armies. And now, they were all filled with pain, grief, and growing rage. These people began to speak to each other. They shared notes, messages, and small bits of data. At first, it was just worry. But then it became more. They realized this was no accident. It was a pattern, a crime, a strike against 10 good people and against Earth itself. And it wasn't just the families and friends who cared. Neighbors started helping. Friends of friends began asking questions. Scientists offered to scan deeper into space. Pilots rerouted flights to watch the edges of Korgak's zones. Farmers sent food and supplies to those searching. Hackers opened channels that had long been closed. Even children began to paint pictures and write stories, keeping the names of the 10 humans alive. The 10 were now more than missing people. They were symbols. Symbols of something dark and cruel that had happened. Symbols of why Earth must stand together, why Earth must act. And still Earth did not shout or scream. It watched, it gathered, it learned. The people on Earth, those who had lost someone, were getting ready. The Korgak's empire thought they had taken strangers, people who would be forgotten. But they were wrong. These 10 humans were connected to a web of strength, talent, and love that stretched across planets. The Korgaks had not kidnapped nobodies. They had stolen from leaders, from thinkers, from hearts that beat with purpose. The storm was forming, quietly, piece by piece. Those who loved the 10 would not rest. Those who believed in justice would not wait. The enemy had chosen to hurt the wrong people. And Earth would not forget. Something had changed. After the 10 humans were taken and their stories were shared, Earth grew quiet but not weak. It was the kind of quiet that happens before a big storm. Families of the missing began to meet. They shared stories, names, times, and places. They looked at old maps, watched space signals, and searched every report. The sadness in their hearts became something new. It became action. The friends and families of the 10 didn't wait for orders. They didn't hold signs or give speeches. They started doing things. Small things, but important things. One of the first changes was in space. A small ship belonging to the Korgaks vanished near a quiet part of a gas cloud. It was not attacked. There was no sound. One moment it was on radar, and the next it was gone. The Korgaks called it a system problem, but others were not so sure. It wasn't the only thing to disappear. Days later, a small supply station stopped working. It belonged to a company that served Korgak's troops. No one saw who shut it down, but when engineers arrived, they found every system off. There was no damage, no fire, just silence. All the machines had been turned off at the same time, like someone had pressed a button, someone who knew all the right codes. In another area, a cargo shipment filled with food and parts meant for a Korgax base never arrived. The ship was last seen near a tiny moon, but when scouts went to look, they found only an empty sky. No wreckage, no signs of struggle. The transport was gone like it had never existed. The Korgax began to whisper among themselves. At first, they laughed. They thought maybe their workers were lazy or something had gone wrong with their systems, but more odd things kept happening. A drone station on the edge of a star system shut down without warning. Security lights blinked and went out. Cameras showed nothing but blackness. When Korgax workers arrived to check it, they found all the memory files gone. Even the backup files were missing. Whoever had done it was careful and smart. On another planet, a Korgax leader tried to send a message to his guards. The message never reached them. Later, he learned the entire communication tower had been shut off for 10 minutes, and only 10 minutes. It came back online like nothing had happened. But during those 10 minutes, something inside his data system had changed. Some files were missing, and no one knew how. Soon, the Korgax could not laugh anymore. The same pattern kept happening. Ships gone, stations quiet, files erased, supplies lost. There were no battles, no lasers, no sounds of war. But things were being taken, shut down, or wiped out one by one. The humans were not attacking with weapons. They were using silence. They were using skill. They were using knowledge. And they were sending a message. The message was clear. Earth had not forgotten. The Korgax grew nervous. They started checking every ship twice. They doubled guards at their bases. They changed passwords and locked down stations. They told their leaders that something strange was happening, but the leaders didn't listen. They believed humans were weak. They thought Earth would never fight. They didn't know the truth. Earth was already fighting. And not just Earth. Many others across the galaxy had seen what happened to the 10 humans. They remembered their own pain. Long ago, the Korgax had hurt others too. Traders, builders, farmers, even children. Most people had stayed silent because they were afraid. But now they were starting to feel brave again. Earth's quiet revenge gave them hope. A group of miners from a distant asteroid began giving humans secret maps. These maps showed hidden paths near Korgax space. Another group of pilots started blocking Korgax shipping lanes by accident. Every small act made a difference. Together, they created problems the Korgax could not explain. The hackers also joined in. They didn't use guns or ships. They used computers and codes. They slipped into Korgax systems and opened locked doors. They turned off power to empty buildings. They took records and sent them to Earth. The hackers found proof that the 10 humans had been taken. They even found pieces of reports from the prison where the humans had been held. These pieces were small, but when put together, they made a clear picture. The humans had been taken without reason. The humans had been hurt without warning. And now, Earth was moving. Still, no one on Earth gave an open warning. No armies flew across the stars. No big ships appeared in the sky. The people working behind the scenes kept their work secret. They wanted the Korgax to feel unsure. They wanted the Empire to look around and feel watched. They wanted them to feel afraid. The plan worked. On one Korgax station, a worker turned on the lights and found every screen flashing a single message. "We know." The message stayed for just 5 seconds, then vanished. The worker checked the system. There was no sign it had ever happened, but he knew what he saw. On another day, a patrol ship found a small object floating near a station. It looked like space junk, but when they brought it inside, it played a song, just a soft melody. It was the same song one of the missing humans used to sing. The Korgax couldn't explain how it got there. The pressure grew. One Korgax commander quit his job. He said the station was cursed. He said lights blinked when they weren't supposed to. He heard voices in the radio. He saw shadows where no one stood. Other commanders called him weak, but deep down they were afraid too. The acts of revenge grew larger. A fuel shipment for a Korgax battle cruiser was stolen. Later, the same fuel showed up on the black market, sold by a group of unknown traders. The ship was never found. The cruiser had to stay docked for a full week. That small delay caused their schedule to fall behind. At a Korgax base on a cold moon, a group of guards found their weapons room completely empty. The door had no damage. Nothing was broken, but every single weapon was gone. The guards were blamed. They said they saw nothing. They didn't lie, they truly hadn't seen anyone. The humans were working in the shadows. They weren't trying to win a war. They were trying to send a signal. And that signal was spreading. Back on Earth, those who missed the 10 humans did not rest. They watched the news. They read every report. And they smiled when they saw what was happening, because they knew. They knew these small actions were not just accidents. They were signs. Signs that Earth was not sitting still. Signs that Earth was remembering. Signs that Earth was starting something bigger. The leaders on Earth said very little. They didn't talk to the press. They didn't make noise. But in secret rooms and quiet places, plans were being written. Lists were being made. Names were being checked. The people who had taken the 10 humans would not be allowed to hide forever. For now, Earth would not strike with full force. But the enemy would feel the early warnings. One by one, piece by piece, revenge had begun. It did not look like fire. It did not sound like thunder. It looked like a ship disappearing into a cloud. It sounded like a message blinking once and then vanishing. It felt like something cold in the air, something waiting. And it was only the beginning. Something strange was happening, and the Korgax Empire was starting to feel it. At first, the leaders said nothing. They believed the little problems would stop on their own. A missing ship here, a dark station there, and a few supply delays didn't seem like much. But now these small events were turning into a pattern, a dangerous pattern. One Korgax general named Tavrek noticed the change before anyone else. He was not like the others. He didn't laugh when reports came in. He didn't ignore the missing supply runs. He studied every file, read every signal, and followed every strange event. And what he saw made him pause. Each missing object had something in common. They were all tied to the same area in space, a place near where the humans had last been seen. That was not all. Each event happened at night hours when most stations were quiet. The actions were silent, fast, and clean. It was like someone had planned them very carefully. General Tavrek made a chart. He marked each time something went wrong. At first, the dots on the chart seemed random, but then a shape appeared. The events formed a wide circle, growing slowly. It looked like something was surrounding the heart of Korgak's space, bit by bit closing in. He showed the chart to his advisors. Some laughed, some got quiet, others asked who could do this, who would dare. Tavrek gave a simple answer: the humans. One advisor shook his head. Humans are weak. Their people cry and ask for peace. Tavrek replied, then why are our ships missing? Why are our systems dying? No one had an answer. More reports came in. A large radar dish on the edge of a moon had gone offline. It was used to watch for attacks, but now it sat still, dark and useless. The files from the dish were gone. The Korgaks sent a team to fix it. The team never arrived. In a city built into the rocks of a dry planet, all lights turned red one night. Then, without warning, every door opened at once. The alarms rang for just 2 minutes, then stopped. Security looked at the controls, but no one had touched them. The system said everything was normal, but the workers were scared. One of them said he saw a shadow move through the halls. Another claimed to hear music playing from nowhere. These small things did not make sense on their own, but together they told a bigger story. Someone was inside their systems. Someone knew their codes. Someone was watching them. The leaders began to ask deeper questions. How did this begin? Why was it happening now? And most of all, who could stop it? Some wanted to blame their own workers. They said it must be traitors or lazy staff. But Tavrek knew better. This was too well done, too clean, too perfect. Only someone outside their empire could pull off something this smooth. Then came a new report. A special data tower which held plans for the Korgak's fleet had been opened. No guards had seen anything, but someone had entered the room, taken a copy of the plans, and left without leaving a mark. The only sign of their visit was a message left on the wall. It said, "We remember the 10." The leaders now knew for sure. This was no accident. The humans were behind it. And they were not angry. They were focused. The mood inside the Korgak's government changed. Fear began to spread. High leaders held meetings in secret. They changed security codes. They moved important files to hidden places. They even shut down trade routes for fear they were being tracked. But nothing helped. Every day something new happened. A drone factory stopped working. A captain lost control of his ship for 1 whole hour. A famous Korgak's banker found her account empty, with a single note left behind. This is only the start. It became clear that the humans were not just striking at soldiers. They were striking at the whole empire. They were aiming at tools, food, money, and power. And they were doing it without a single loud fight. Even regular citizens began to notice. Prices changed. News channels went dark. Traffic systems glitched. People waited in long lines for food that never arrived. Whispers started in the streets. Is the Empire falling? Are the humans coming? Panic grew. The Korgaks tried to control the news. They said everything was fine, but deep inside they were not fine. They were scared. The leaders stopped traveling. The army stopped training. Everyone waited for the next strange thing to happen. General Tavrek called a full meeting. He showed the map again, now with more dots. The circle had grown tighter. He said, "The humans are not just fighting, they are hunting. They are cutting us off." Another leader asked, "What do they want?" Tavrek said, "They want us to feel what they felt: fear, loss, silence." A few in the room still did not believe. They said, "Let's strike first. Let's destroy Earth before they reach us." But Tavrek shook his head. "We don't even know where they are. We don't know how they move. We don't know who is helping them. If we strike without a plan, we will fail." And so the Korgaks waited. But waiting brought no peace. One day an entire training camp was found empty. The guards were missing. The machines were gone. No one saw the attackers. Only a message remained written in the dirt: "We do not forget." Soon other enemies of the Korgaks started to act braver. Old groups that had been silent now began to speak again. Some blocked trade roads. Others started protests. A few even attacked Korgaks' posts. They had seen what the humans were doing, and it gave them courage. The Korgaks' empire was no longer feared. It was being tested. And it was failing. In the middle of all this, a strange thing happened. A single Korgaks ship returned to base after being lost for weeks. The crew had no memory of where they had been. They only remembered hearing a voice say, "Tell them we are coming." That voice haunted the leaders. No one could explain it. The ship showed no damage. The computers were clean, but something was off. The crew looked tired, as if they had seen something they couldn't understand. That same night, every screen in the Empire blinked once. Just once. No words, no sound. But it was enough. People across planets looked up at the screen and saw nothing, but they knew what it meant. The humans were watching. And they were getting closer. General Tavrek stood alone in his war room looking at his map. The circle had almost closed now. He whispered, "They are not angry, they are not wild, they are calm, and that is what makes them powerful." The Korgaks were not used to calm enemies. They were used to loud threats, to wild attacks, to messy battles. But this was different. The humans were quiet. And in that quiet, the Korgaks heard something worse than war. They heard judgment. And they were not ready for it. Across the Empire, fear became normal. Guards watched every door. Pilots refused to fly. Traders stayed home. Families whispered at dinner tables. The leaders held more secret meetings but found no answers. Each question led to more questions. Each guess led to more fear. What were the humans planning? When would they strike? And most of all, why hadn't they already? The answer was simple. They were waiting for the right time. And now that time was almost here. The Korgaks could feel it. They had thought humans were weak. But now they were learning a deep truth. Humans don't forget. Humans don't forgive easily. And when humans move, they move with purpose. Far away from the stars where the Korgax Empire ruled, Earth was quiet. It did not send ships. It did not speak loudly. There were no news stories or public calls for war. Instead, something else was happening. Deep below the surface, behind thick doors and strong walls, the real plan was being made. In the heart of Earth's oldest mountain, a hidden base came to life. It had no name, no lights outside, no signs. From space, it looked like empty land, but inside, important people were arriving. They came by silent cars, by small ships, and some even walked through secret tunnels. They did not wear uniforms. They did not wave flags, but they all carried something heavier than weapons. They carried pain. Each person in that room had lost someone, a sister, a brother, a parent, a friend. The 10 humans that the Korgax had taken were not just names. They were part of lives, and those lives had changed forever. Some of the leaders were generals, some were scientists, others were builders, thinkers, or protectors. They came from different places, but they all had the same goal. They were not there to cry. They were not there to talk. They were there to win. The room was plain, just a round table and simple chairs. Screens showed space paths, energy lines, and Korgax maps. One screen showed a timer. It ticked slowly, counting down. No one said what it meant, but they all knew. The leader of the meeting was a woman named Commander Hale. She had once smiled easily. Not anymore. Her eyes were sharp, and her voice was quiet but strong. She looked around the table and began the meeting with just 5 words. "They think we won't fight." No one spoke, but all nodded. She continued. "They didn't expect us to remember. They didn't expect us to move without noise, but we did. And now it's time for the next step." She turned to a man named Cairo. He used to design engines. Now he worked with signals. He stood and showed a map of the Korgax Empire. On the screen, small lights blinked across many systems. "We've been inside their networks for 3 months," he said. "They don't know. We can see their messages. We can hear their orders. We know when they eat, when they sleep, and where they store every weapon." A few gasped softly, others simply nodded. They had hoped for this. Next, a woman named Rosa took the floor. She was once a teacher. Now she built code that broke systems. "Their power lines are weak. Their ships talk through one channel. If we press one button, we can shut them down. Not just one ship, but many, all at once." She looked at the group and added, "But we won't do it yet. We wait. We strike only when it matters." Commander Hale stepped forward again. "We're not here to burn. We're not here to kill. We are here to end this. Clean, sharp, fast, with no waste." Then came the plan. It had many parts. Each part had a name: Shadow Net, Echo Storm, Silent Teeth. These names were simple, but behind them were powerful ideas. Earth's best minds had worked day and night. They had studied every Korgax system. They knew where to move, when to stop, and how to make the biggest change with the smallest touch. They had spies, not ones who looked like Korgax, but ones who moved through space, watched from the dark, and sent back pictures. They knew which leaders were scared. They knew which stations were nearly empty. They had maps of every fuel center, every power core, and every weak wall. One part of the plan was called Needle Drop. It meant sending small, fast ships into the outer edges of Korgak's space, not to fight, but to leave behind tiny tools, tools that would wake up at the right time, enter machines, and open the gates for Earth's moves. Another part was mirror pulse. It would bounce false signals across the stars, so the Korgaks would think Earth's fleet was somewhere else. When they turned to chase the shadow, Earth would be already inside. Commander Hale looked around the room again. "We have enough to strike now," she said. "But we won't. Not yet. We wait for the moment when they are most unsure, most afraid. And when they begin to break it, that is when we will move." A young man near the end of the table raised his hand. His name was Eli. He was new but smart. "How will we know the right moment?" he asked. Commander Hale smiled slightly. "We'll know," she said, "because we'll make it happen." The team would not fight like the Korgaks. No large ships, no long battles, no loud messages. They would use silence. They would use knowledge. They would move like air, touch like wind, and then disappear. And when the Korgaks tried to fix the damage, Earth would strike again, somewhere else. The plan had one clear rule: do not waste life. Earth would not destroy homes. They would not attack the weak. They would aim only at power, power that hurt others, power that built fear, power that needed to be taken away. There was also a backup plan. If anything failed, Earth's core systems would remain hidden. No signal would lead the enemy back home. And even if Earth's main team fell, more teams were waiting. It was not about one person. It was about the mission. The leaders broke into smaller groups. Each group took one part of the plan. They worked for hours, sometimes without speaking. They checked numbers, maps, and weather in space. They sent tiny messages to ships already near Korgak's space. One message said, "Begin wave 2." Another said, "Turn the eyes." By the end of the day, the first 3 steps were ready. A new path had been made through an old star cluster. It was small and hidden. No Korgak's radar would see it. That path would be used by Earth's ghost fleet, a set of ships with no names, no lights, and no trace. They would go first. In another room, engineers worked on clean codes, silent programs that would hide inside enemy machines and wait. They would not harm anything until told. But when the time came, they would open every door, turn off every light, and leave the Empire in total stillness. The workers did not cheer. They did not high-five. They just nodded and kept going, because they were not here for joy. They were here for justice. Back in the command room, Commander Hale stood alone and looked at the screen again. The countdown ticked on. 17 days remained, then 16, then 15. She remembered her brother, one of the 10. He had been kind. He had helped others. He had never hurt anyone, and the Korgaks took him like he was nothing.